All right, folks, we'll be starting momentarily. Just making sure that we are live on. I'm happy to be here with you today. Understand the logic, and we see this in social media on a regular basis, and it's something that Newsweek decided not to tell you about. Representative Sheila Jackson Lee has no idea what she's talking about.
You can meet a very, very stringent accuracy rate when it's important, when it matters, like in federal elections. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am happy to be here with Thank you for program. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am happy to be here hosting the program Political Dragon here in our offices in the Bronx, and I am happy to be here joining us on our Sunday live stream here in our offices at 2:30 p.m. and I am happy to be here. We try to do a Sunday live stream. We usually get that right. I hope everyone is enjoying the program. Sorry, had some background noise in there. Did not notice that. Yes, this is a program. I just noticed. We had the multiple mics. I got it taken care of. So the echoes should be gone now. Okay? Okay. I apologize. I was busy trying to make sure that we were up live on Rumble at the same time that we were up live on YouTube and DLive and Twitter and all the other surfaces out there. So I apologize for that momentary confusion there. My apologies. I can only have so many screens that I can watch at one time. But again, I am welcoming you to our Bronx studio as we go live around the world to talk to you about the politics that are affecting us all, because we believe in the First Amendment. We believe in your right to free speech. And we do hope that you will take the opportunity to check this out. Not only that, to share it with everyone. Help us fight the algorithm. We are being suppressed, just like you are being suppressed. Right now, the mainstream media, the major internet overlords, they are suppressing your voice, trying to convince you that you are alone, that there is no one else who thinks like you do, no one else who believes what you believe across the world. And that is a lie. That is a massive lie. Thousands upon thousands watch our shorts, our little clips throughout the week, and when we do shows on other channels. And I can tell you, you are not alone. There are thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not millions, that agree with you across the world. We're going to try and make this, as always, for those who are not familiar with the show, and I do welcome you and thank you for being part of the program. We do a live stream where it's unscripted. This is a conversation between me and you and the rest of the world. We look forward to seeing your comments like we've seen from Dow, from Graham, from Happy Life. I think there's a few others who are here with us as well that are already making their comments. And we thank each and every one of you for every single one of your comments. We're going to be, this is interactive. It's not me just talking to you. It's us having a conversation. And I see that Graham already has a question. Dow goes, all those voices in his head. The medication. It's called Budweiser. Anyway, Graham says, hope you will comment today on whether Vivek is a true Make America Great or just another talented, smooth talker. Well, since you brought that up, yes, I absolutely will talk a little bit about Vivek. And and when we get to Iowa, Graham, just remind me, when we're talking about Iowa, we're talking about the Iowa caucuses and the Republican nomination. Just bring up Vivek again. I'm sure it's going to come up, but in case I forget, Don't let me forget. Remind me about that. But I wanted to start off the program today with a little bit something different. First, I want to mention and give a quick shout out to someone who this week you may have noticed that we were on national radio, national talk radio, on the Andy Hoosier program. That's the Voice of Reason. That was on the 10th of January. I think it was a great conversation. Many people see me do the long-form political commentary, and they don't realize that, yes, I've been on the mainstream news media formats. And yes, I can do the minute and a half, 2 minute, 3 minute answer to some of the difficult questions that are going on today. And Andy, I've known him for a couple of years. He really covers a lot of information. He's a very smart man, covering most of the Midwest. And while we can have far more extended conversations, and I have with Andy over the years, we can both nail the news media format, the 2 minute answer, the 3 minute answer, the minute and a half answer. And you'd be surprised how much information I'm able to convey in just a minute and a half that your local news, the national news, will not tell you, because they're trying to edit out all of the things that actually matter to you, all the things that will affect you. So I do recommend people check that out if you have not already. It is also up on Rumble, so you can see it there as well. In addition to that, let me also take a moment and just let you know, since I'm going to tell you a little bit about all the things that we did this week. Let me just, and yes, I can't see my second screen, so please bear with me. But there is also the Friday Roundtable, 9 p.m. every Friday. We do a live stream. As you can see, we have 5 people on this last week talking about the Constitution. What is constitutional in America, and how violating the Constitution, violating the amendments, the foundation of America, is destroying America. Talking about gun control, the spending bills that we see, the failure to have a budget, the distractions that we see, taking candidates off the ballot, denying you the right and ability to actually speak about what's going on. We cover all of that, and every week we do that every Friday night at 9 p.m. I do recommend you check that out if you have not had the chance. Let's see, and finally, please do not forget that throughout the week we get great help, and I am very happy to mention that there is the J-Rest break. This is our shorts, and predominantly almost all the shorts are done by John. He does a fantastic job coming in during the week and doing a J-Rest break, a 1 minute short video about the politics of that moment. And he's very popular. And believe it or not, we're more popular on Instagram, on Twitter, on TikTok, on Twitter or X than we are on YouTube. It tells you something, where we will get thousands, if not tens of thousands of views of our shorts on every format except on YouTube. It's funny. Even the communists on TikTok will watch hundreds, if not thousands, of views on TikTok run by the Communist Party of China more than we will get. We will get 5 people to see a short on YouTube because YouTube is censoring it, and we will get thousands everywhere else. Okay. So that's some of the background. That's some of the extra stuff that's been going on that we do every week that you may not be aware of. So whether you like to see short form or longer form or interviews, we do a little bit of all of that. But we always start off the week talking about what's happening internationally before we get to the domestic. So before we get to Iowa, before we get to President Trump and Vivek Ramaswamy and Nikki Haley, let's talk about what's happening right now around the world that you probably aren't hearing a whole lot about, that we have been talking about on this channel more often than not, a hell of a lot. And let me start with this. So, because this is important, these are the things that are going to actually affect your life. And news media just doesn't want you to know about this. They just don't want you to talk about it. How about this? The fact that North Korea, and we've been talking about North Korea for years, since 2021, North Korea has fired off hundreds of missiles and rockets and ICBMs. They have been threatening the United States, South Korea, and Japan continuously, almost nonstop. They have fired off more missiles, rockets, and ICBMs than, oh, and don't let me leave out hypersonic missiles that we cannot shoot down. They have fired off more of these under the 3 years of Joe Biden than any other president in their entire term combined. That's any, and you look at 4 years of, I don't know, George Bush, you look at 8 years of Donald Trump, of Obama, and you will not get as many missiles fired by North Korea as you've gotten in just the 3 years. And we've just hit 3 years of Joe Biden. It is amazing. It is insane. It is a threat. That's besides the fact that they're now firing off artillery rounds, and they have clearly stated that they are going to go to war, that they are going to physically continue the war that has been on hold, on pause, in a ceasefire since the 1950s. This is significant. And this tells you the mindset of China. China is militarizing. They are in the logistics phase. They are building up their ability to go into Taiwan by force, which they have promised that they will do. This is important to us. We're talking a war in Southeast Asia where we have a treaty that guarantees the safety of Japan, and we will be held to that. But Japan has so little confidence in the Biden-Harris administration, they're building their own army for the first time since 1945. We see that South Korea is militarizing. They are now the fourth largest weapons manufacturer in the world. They used to be seventh. That's before Joe Biden got into office. Now they are becoming the fourth because they are preparing for war. The Philippines, which is currently being blockaded in a confrontation with China in the South China Sea. This is a massive buildup as China is doubling the size of their navy and the United States is shrinking by half our navy. That's a big difference. And this is all happening at the same time that we see the conflicts in the rest of the world. I was asked a question recently, are you afraid that South America or Africa, that they will become regions of war? No, because they already are. They never stopped. They have internal conflicts, civil wars that are going on, religious wars that have been going on continuously. They haven't organized yet. So they're going to continue, but the big major areas that we believe are going to simultaneously be affecting all of our lives are Europe, are the Middle East, and Southeast Asia. And the big actors there are China, Iran, and Russia. And this is coming together. And you keep hearing the hint in the background that it's going to be World War III. Matter of fact, on Deutsche Welle, the German TV news station, this week, Gloria Brown Murray, a John Jay professor, went on out and she said, if President Donald Trump is reelected, then it will be World War III. He will be a dictator and he will start World War III. Now, and I covered this in some detail. We did an analysis of her conversation with Deutsche Welle News. And the most important thing to understand is this fear-mongering that is coming from the academic elites like John Jay. Well, when they are asked details on their fear-mongering, their emotions, they don't have answers. When Gloria Brown Marshall, the professor of constitutional law, was asked, who's Donald Trump going to be fighting against? If if her fear mongering were to come true, who would Donald Trump be fighting? You know what her answer was? She had no idea. Her answer was, well, he's just a dictator. He's just a bad guy. Orange man bad. That was her literal answer to the German national news, international news media. She had no justification. All she has is the parroted lines coming from CNN and MSNBC and her echo chamber in the academia that said, oh, Orange Man must be bad. It must be World War III. You know what? And we have a fact in front of us right now. This is how we get into 3 regional wars. We are seeing it live. We have been covering this since 2021 under Joe Biden because it didn't happen under Donald Trump. It happened under Obama. It didn't happen under Donald Trump. And we are seeing it happen even more. It is more accelerated and happening now more so under the Biden-Harris administration, where they don't care. Remember, Biden was supposedly going to be the negotiator. He was the expert. He had the experience. All these world leaders know Joe Biden. And so he would be better at doing international politics than Donald Trump, who is just that rogue cowboy. And yet, Joe Biden has failed. He has consistently failed. And we are suffering for that. And don't think that this is only isolated to what you're seeing in Southeast Asia. Now, before I go further with that, let me clarify something. It's not going to be World War III. We have covered this a lot on this program, but for those who are seeing it for the first time, for it to be World War III, there would have to be some unifying idea that Russia and China and Iran all believe in. North Korea being a puppet of China, they do basically whatever China wants. There has to be something that unifies them. The only thing that actually unifies them is that they hate America. That's it. But Iran hates anyone who doesn't believe whatever the Ayatollah believes. They are religious fanatics. China wants everyone in the world to be communist and beholden to the Chinese oligarchy, their ruling council. They don't care about anything else. Russia just wants to get back to the old grand status of the former Soviet Union, of the old Russian-Prussian Empire. So they all have very different and conflicting views. They don't like each other. That's not World War III. That's 3 simultaneous regional wars that they work with each other to benefit in the war, that regional war they are having. And that's a big difference, because you can't, if you were fighting just one axis, you can take that out. You can attack that ideology. You can defeat all of your enemies by attacking the one central thing that unites them. You can't do that when it's 3 separate regional wars that are not connected other than the fact they don't like who they're fighting. That's not World War III. Let's understand that clearly. And anyone who's trying to tell you it's going to be World War III if Trump gets elected, they have no idea what they're talking about. If someone's saying that about Joe Biden, they have no idea what they're talking about. It's not World War III. It can't be. They're not united that way. But it can be, and it is. 3 regional wars simultaneously happening across the world, affecting each and every one of us. So I think that's very different. Let me see some of the comments here. Dow mentions, I'm with Dan Bongino, and with me, put belief in outcomes, not people, regardless of what happens. Trump doesn't need Vivek Ramaswamy to save him, and MAGA doesn't need Trump to be president. It's an expedient. You're right. Now, I want to address something about, and let me try and bring this up for you guys. Hang on one second. I'm working off of multiple screens here. I want you to understand how bad this is getting. Because when I say that China is off on their own, that North Korea are doing their own thing, the problem is Joe Biden has completely failed. Joe Biden, as you can see, has made the statement that he believes Taiwan yesterday had their elections. Taiwan trying to be pro-democracy. They want the support of the West. They want to have more democracy. They oppose China, which is the main leading problem in Southeast Asia. Why I believe there will be a war by 2028 in Southeast Asia. And the Taiwanese voted against China, against communism, and they're strongly against that. And Joe Biden, who's supposed to be the symbol of freedom in the world. He is the leader of America, the beacon of freedom and democracy in the world. And he is actively telling the world, guess what? I do not support Taiwan. He said this very clearly. He does not support Iran. This is coming from Reuters. You don't have to think you don't have to be a Republican or a conservative to understand the impact this has. This is Joe Biden throwing cold water onto Taiwan. This is emboldening China. This is the reason why we are in this situation as we speak. Because Joe Biden is sending out mixed messages that are encouraging China and North Korea, Iran and Russia. When he says that the United States is not going to support or does not support Taiwan being an independent nation, he is capitulating to the Chinese government, which makes them more eager to go into the Red Sea, to go in and take over Taiwan, to possibly start taking action against Japan and South Korea and the Philippines as they have been doing. This is why we have these problems, because he's not understanding the consequences. He's trying to make nice with Chairman Xi out of China, but that's not good enough. Meanwhile, China doesn't care. They don't care about greenhouse gases. They don't care about climate change. They don't care about the border with India and respecting India's territorial border. They don't care about Japan or anyone else. This is dangerous. And what this means is everything will cost more for you, because the more that China is diverting all of its resources to preparing for war, which they are doing, in building up their military and building up their navy, they are preparing for war. At the same time, remember, about 35-40% of all the goods in the United States are made by the Chinese. So imagine that China decides that they want to take over Taiwan as they said they will. And Joe Biden, God forbid he gets reelected in 2024, he's the guy who's saying, well, they were never independent anyway. It has nothing to do with the United States. All of your semiconductors, everything, your cell phones, your laptops, your tablets, all of your smart everything and all the smart devices that you own, these are chips that are being made in Taiwan. This is technology that requires the infrastructure from Taiwan. That's going to go away. And at the same time, if the United States decides to act up to try and defend Taiwan or Japan or South Korea, well, then China will just slow down or completely stop making all the things that the United States needs. Mind you, the United States is in a unique position. Well, it's not going to switch over. All right. The United States is in a unique position. We're one of the few nations in the world that could actually produce everything we need right here. We don't need China to make all the things that people in America the quality of life that we have. We don't need them for that. We do it because it's cheap labor, but we don't need that. We could do it here. If it weren't for the unions, we probably would be doing it here in the United States, because unions add a significant amount to the cost of everything that's produced in America, which is why so much is being produced outside of America and in China. But if push came to shove, yeah, we could definitely make everything that we need here in the United States. Here's the problem. That takes time. We have to build factories. We have to employ and train workers. We have to pay them. We have to get the resources refined and put in place and processed. It takes time to build that infrastructure. We have to fix our roads. We have to fix our bridges. We'd have to change our electric transmission. And I don't care whether you're talking about green energy or nuclear, we need new energy lines. We need new transmission lines. We need new batteries. We'd have to rebuild. And that's going to take 3 to 5 years in the perfect world, in a perfect scenario, which means we would be devastated as a nation for at least 3 to 5 years. And China knows it. The world knows it. So China is holding that over our noses. That is the sword of Damocles over the United States right now. That they make our stuff, and if they stop making our stuff, including our pharmaceuticals, drugs that many Americans take every day to keep themselves alive, if they stop making it, guess what? We have 3 to 5 years of hell that we would have to go through. People would starve. Businesses would fail. Homelessness would skyrocket. China knows this. The United States knows it, which is why they are moving forward. They think that Americans will not suffer that inconvenience for 3 to 5 years to be self-sufficient. They think that the progressive movement has made Americans, the youth of America, so comfortable that they're incapable and unwilling to actually defend America. I don't agree with that. I don't believe that's the case. But that's what China's betting on. And that's kind of what Joe Biden is presenting to the world. By the way, I am checking on what's being said over at Rumble too, in case anyone wants to leave a comment or watch the program on Rumble. I am looking at that too. So this is why this is so important. Because if the United States makes a stand, actually has a policy, a firm policy, to confront and try and protect Japan, as our 1960 treaty requires, to protect South Korea, as our treaties with them require, to help our allies in the Philippines and Taiwan, which we have generally said we actually support the independence of Taiwan. Joe Biden, not so much. Every other president, yeah. Then we have to be prepared for actually becoming more self-sufficient. Joe Biden isn't doing that. And that's a problem. China knows this. The rest of the world knows this. They don't believe he's serious. Because if he were serious, he'd be trying to make America more self-sufficient, and therefore he would be taking them seriously. They would act in a different way. I think this is important. Happy Life says, if Biden wins the election, do you think at least 5% of the citizens will move out of the country? No. Let me answer that directly. And thank you for the question. Happy Life, no one's going to move out of America. Whether it's Biden or if it's Trump, no one's going to leave. Just like in 2016, we heard all of Hollywood, pretty much almost 100% of Hollywood, guaranteed that they were not going to be in America if Trump were the president. We were told by I don't know how many of the technology moguls they would move their entire companies out of the United States if President Trump were to be elected. None of that happened. And in the same way, and I've never heard, and I don't think I know of any of the conservatives who have said, oh, I'll leave if Biden is elected or reelected. I don't think I've ever heard that. And the reason why is, where are you going to go? What's better than the United States? There is no nation in the world as free as the United States. There is no nation in the world with as much upward mobility as the United States. There is no nation where you can make as much money and have as much success as the United States. That's with every flaw you could possibly imagine or claim against the United States. And I know the left loves to say, oh, well, the United States is so repressive, it's racism, blah, blah, ism and ist all the way. Yeah, and we're still the best in the world. Even if you believe what the left is selling, that America is nothing but colonizers and ists and phobes, and we're still the most free, most successful, most upwardly mobile, most comfortable nation in the world. There is nowhere else to go. Sure, occasionally we'll see people like Tom Hanks will take a vacation from the United States for a little while and go to some other country, and then he comes back. They all come back. They'll go on their vacation. They'll be out there for an extended period of time, but they know where the bread is being buttered. They understand what their freedom means because they are not free in other nations. That's why they always come back. That's why the world comes to the United States. People will come to the United States from every other country in the world. Virtually no American will leave America to go to any other part of the world. No one stops being an American citizen to be a citizen of any other country. But people leave every other country to become a citizen of the United States. So to answer your question, no, they won't. In terms of having war with Iran, I'm about to get into that in just a second. And Happy Life, you say, would you prefer Nikki Haley or DeSantis as president? In considering the situation with the Middle East right now, Nikki Haley, which I actually in 2022, in March of 2022, I did a tier list, and I ranked and I went through all of the candidates, Democrat and Republican, that are running for the presidency of the United States at that time, which is more than are running right now. And I ran through all of their international policies, all of their experience, and ranked them. Now, number one was Donald Trump, because he was former president as well as his business experience for many decades. But he was also president and had direct hands-on interaction with these world leaders, and the world was more stable under President Trump than under Biden now, or Obama then. So he was top of the list. My number two choice of the second most capable person dealing with international politics, well, it's Nikki Haley. And say whatever you like about her, whether you like her or not, doesn't really matter. I'm talking about effectiveness. I could care less about feelings. I don't care if you don't like Orange Man bad. I don't care if you don't like Nikki Haley and you think she's bought by corporations. I could care less. What is their experience? That is definitive. That is factual. We can chart that. And the two most experienced and capable individuals running for president, Democrat or Republican or third party, the top two people are Donald Trump and Nikki Haley, in that order. So I hope that answers that for you. John says, hey, Mike, joining you with your fiance. Hello to your fiance. Hello, Mrs. Wislusha. She says, watching the X-Files. Are you going to talk about how Iowa might be postponed due to weather? I don't believe that's going to happen. No matter what the weather conditions are, people in Iowa are going to have a caucus. That's irregardless. No matter what the weather is. There could be a blizzard of the century. They're going to have the Iowa Caucus. People will show up. By the way, that's what we have always done in the past. They're like, oh my God, it's a snowstorm. It's January. Of course there's a snowstorm. Of course it's cold weather. It's January in the northern hemisphere of the earth. Of course it's winter. This is not the first time that it snowed in Iowa during the caucuses. It's not the first time that the weather was cold in North America as we went through a presidential election year and we went through the primaries. This is not new or unusual. They have always continued to have the primaries regardless of the weather, and people came out because they cared about our nation and they cared about the leadership of our nation. The reason why you're hearing this, and I'm glad you brought that up, John, the reason why we're hearing about Iowa, should we postpone? Should we cut this? We're not going to get a good answer. It's not democratic. You're hearing that all coming from the left. You're hearing that from CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times. It's the left trying to give an excuse ahead of time. They're preparing their excuse about why Joe Biden will not perform well, why he's not getting the kind of excitement that they have promised us he must have. He got 81 million votes after all. He's the most popular president that ever existed, according to the Democrats. Then everyone must be excited for Bidenomics, which has been working so well that everyone is in better off than you think you are. They've been telling us that for 3 years in a row. You're doing better than you think you are. Life is good. You just don't understand. Joe Biden is excellent. You just don't get it. Well, guess what? They're going to say because of the weather, well, Joe Biden isn't showing up as well in the polls. But as we will go into a little bit later in the show, that's not the reality. That's not the truth. The problem isn't the weather. The problem is the candidate. And guess what? Republicans are showing up. The Republicans have no problem saying they want Donald Trump. And if they couldn't get Donald Trump for some godforsaken reason, your next choice is pretty much Nikki Haley. And they are coming out and they are motivated and excited to say that. So, no, I don't think it's the weather. That won't stop anyone. That's never stopped anyone in the past, but it's a current convenient excuse to say climate change, the world is so much worse than it ever has been before. It's a snowstorm. Who could have possibly imagined that to happen in North America in the middle of winter? Who could have ever imagined snow? Iowa has no idea what to do with snow in the winter. Oh my God, we just have to shut everything down. No, no, and no. That's just ridiculous. John says, how come also that the White House staff had to be relocated due to far left protesters? Well, I was about to get to that. Because this weekend, remember, there was insurrection, January 6th, the worst thing that ever happened to America. And this weekend, the far left, the pro-Hamas left, were attacking the White House, trying to break down the gates, and nearly succeeded in breaking down the gates, to protest, to support Hamas, which is a whole story, and I'm going to get into that in just 1 second. But that was this weekend. But yet, they will not be called insurrectionists for trying to change the government by force. They won't be called insurrectionists for trying to destroy the White House and to invade the White House. That's not insurrection. That's just a protest. Doesn't matter that people were injured. Doesn't matter that property was destroyed. Doesn't matter that they are violently trying to change our government. No, that's not an insurrection. That's just a protest because it's on the left. The moment it's on the right, and half of that, if any of that, not all of it together, but any one of those things happen, well, then that's just an insurrection. It's the fact that there are not just 2 tiers of rules that are going on. There's about 15. I mean, if you're on the left, you have to juggle through the different tiers of logic to make anything make sense. It's incredible. But yes, John, I am going to get to that. But let me continue, because what I was actually going to go to, because we were just talking about China. Joe Biden doesn't support Taiwan. Come on, why is my computer acting up? Come on, stupid computer. Sorry about that. My computer's acting up Why is it doing that? Why is it doing that to me? Let me know when I get back. Let me know if the screen has frozen for anyone. Oh, there it is. It's back for me. Okay, let me try this again. So, we're talking about while Biden is busy telling our allies, our friends, while he is busy telling Taiwan that they're not free, the Biden administration is at the very same time, in the same breath, the Biden administration is celebrating the Chinese government and the Chinese officials responsible for breaking international law, creating illegal police stations, Chinese police stations in New York City and across the United States, as well as 50 other countries. Think about that. The Chinese Communist government opened up illegal police stations in New York, 2 in New York City, and I think it was 4 across the United States, 50 around the world, so that they could persecute and attack Chinese citizens and former Chinese citizens on U.S. soil, violating U.S. law. And the guy who was in charge of making that happen, the guy who actually came up with that policy to create the secret police in America for China, the communist country, yeah, they rolled out the red carpet for this guy. They treated him like royalty. This is the Biden administration that did that. Again, these are facts. I don't care how you feel about it. These are the facts. We're telling our friends in Taiwan, you're on your own under the Biden administration. And we're telling China, don't worry, we've got your back. That we will forgive and forget that they broke international law, that they were using their police on our soil to break our laws. Think about that. That's the message that is going out. And do you think China, when they're watching Joe Biden bend over backwards, the Biden administration bend over backwards to treat the guy who broke international law like he's royalty, as they also tell our ally, Taiwan, to just kiss their ass? Well, you think China thinks Joe Biden is serious at all? That he provides a serious threat to their ambitions at all? But mind you, the news media will not connect these things. They will not tell you that they have anything to do with each other. They are directly related. They are directly connected. The same guy and the same program that were putting police stations in New York City, as we were one of the first agencies, news media, to tell you about this, if they are willing to allow that, do you think they're going to interrupt China going into Taiwan? They wouldn't even take the police station out. The United States government, the Biden administration, didn't actively try and get rid of that police station. It was only because independent news media, like myself and others, spoke up around the world, actually made the public aware that the police station, in fact, we had people who called into this program and gave us the exact address, the exact floor, the exact door of the secret Chinese police station in New York City at the time. We knew that. And if I was able to get that information to provide to the public, how in the world did the FBI and the CIA not know that? The answer is they did know. If the people in New York City knew about it and were able to detail it down to the door, the Biden-Harris administration knew too. And they didn't care. And the news media didn't talk about it. And that's why we have the Biden administration celebrating the Chinese as they break our laws. This is insane. This is affecting you. This is directly affecting you when you think about it. If other countries can come into America and their laws are superseding American laws, that they are able to enforce their far more authoritarian governments in America, what does that make you? A second-class citizen in your own country, in our own cities? And does that sound like someone who's strong? Do you think anyone thinks Joe Biden is strong when he allows foreign countries to have their own police enacting their own laws in America? Does that sound like someone strong? Who sounds strong in that scenario? China or the United States? And if you have to think about that and you don't immediately come up with the answer, China, you may have to question how your education has come. You may be indoctrinated if you think China isn't the one who was in charge when they were putting their secret police in America, and the Biden-Harris administration allowed them to do that. Because again, if I was able to find out about it and I could locate it in one live stream and I was able to nail down the exact door that secret police station was at in New York City, then the CIA and the FBI did too. And God forbid, if they didn't, that's even worse. It's even worse if they didn't know something I was able to find out in one live stream. So I am giving the FBI and the CIA credit that they did know and were under orders not to take action. Because I can't imagine the hell that is going on in our government if they didn't know. Dow says, it's pretty clear that if no one had noticed and been vocal about the Chinese Communist Party's spy balloon, the administration would have let that thing fly on and never have stopped it. Well, yes. If no one had noticed it, same thing with the Chinese police station. If no one had talked about it, they were more than happy to let it continue to exist, to intimidate and coerce American citizens and violate American laws. They'd have been happy with that. They'd have been happy to have the spy balloon take pictures of every secret installation in America and spy on individual Americans' private lives all day long. They would never have stopped it. God knows how many times that China did this and and no one noticed that spy balloon. How many times? How many times did they do that we didn't notice? That's the real question. And again, it goes back to Biden is giving out mixed messages. He's telling the American voter, look, I'm a strong leader. He tells our allies, like Taiwan, you're on your own, just like he tells American citizens in foreign countries like Afghanistan, Ukraine, Sudan, even right now in Gaza. He tells American citizens that are being held hostage or stuck in the middle of war zones, you're on your own. He tells our allies, like Taiwan, you're on your own. And then he also tells the bad guys, which that is China, that is Iran, that is Russia. He tells them, green light, do whatever you want. That's terrifying to me. This is what our election is about. John says, of course they don't care, Mike. They're more worried about allowing men to box women. Yes, I know. That is one of their concerns. Virtue signal. We've got a virtue signal. Did you see the latest Disney Echo? Did you see the Marvels? You have to check those boxes. Check the boxes. DEI. Check the box. Because that's important. The absolute collapse of our country, the fundamental foundation of our country is being destroyed. Joe Biden is allowing countries to steamroll the United States and our interests around the world, and he is abandoning tens of thousands of Americans while he is doing all this. But check that box. That's the important thing for 2024. And again, when I say tens of thousands, it is confirmed that Joe Biden left at least 5,000 Americans in Afghanistan in 2021. That is a fact. We know at least 200 Americans at this moment are held by the Taliban, ISIS, and Al-Qaeda and are being tortured as we speak in Afghanistan. That's this second. We know for a fact Joe Biden talked to Lester Holt on NBC, told the world that the 20,000 Americans in the Ukraine were on their own. When I say 10,000 remain there to this day, it's an estimate. I'm going lowball on the estimate because the news media doesn't want to talk about it. When I say that there were 15,000 Americans, that is the number internationally confirmed by all international news media. 15,000 Americans at the minimum were in the Sudan. And they were abandoned by the Biden administration, who literally told them, figure your own way out of the African war zone, that the United States government will not come get them. That is a fact. It's not a question. It's not an opinion. It's not a feeling. It is a fact. We covered this in the end of April of 2023 and the beginning of May of 2023. Matter of fact, if you look it up, Americans in the Sudan, the last article you will see internationally was May 3rd of 2023, and the story died. Why? Because Joe Biden is supposed to look like a leader. Because if you knew that he abandoned 30,000 Americans over the 3 years he's been in office so far, you might not vote Democrat. You might not vote for Joe Biden. And they can't have that. But it is factually correct. It is factually the truth. It is internationally confirmed. You're just not supposed to know. You're not supposed to think about it. You're not supposed to consider that the next time you go on vacation, if you have to go overseas for a business trip, for whatever reason you leave the soil of the United States, you are on your own if Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and the Democrats and the progressives are in charge. You have no backing. You will not be protected. Look at how many Americans are being held hostage by Hamas right now. And because everyone in America doesn't know that answer, they don't know what that number is, that's why there are Americans being held hostage by Hamas, because they know they can get away with it. Think about it. The United States was going to drop nuclear weapons on Iran in 1980 because they were holding on to 40 Americans for 600 days. Because of the Iran hostage situation in the 1980s, we nearly went to war and nearly dropped bombs on Iran. That's when the Ayatollah took over. Here we are today. Americans are being held hostage. They are being sexually tortured and abused as we speak. That is a fact. That is what the hostages who have been released around the world, they have all confirmed this, that the hostages were tortured and sexually abused. Americans are being tortured and sexually abused as we speak. What is Joe Biden doing to get them home? We started with 22 American hostages. We have no idea how many remain today. We have no number. And they're still there. That should chill everyone. I don't care what your political preference is. I don't care if you're a libertarian. I don't care if you're a straight up communist. You could be part of the Democratic Socialists of America. You should not matter what your political preference is. These are Americans. This could be you. And they don't care. They don't care. And in fact, the more progressive you become, the more that we see them trying to protest in favor of Hamas, that they are supporting Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthi rebels, the terrorists of Yemen, in attacking the United States. In fact, that brings us up to what's going on right this second. I'll get to the comments. But that brings us to what's happening right this second. And what's happening right this second is that, where is it? I want to just bring this up. The Houthi rebels right now have been for months, and we have covered this on this channel, We've been covering this for a couple of months now. Since November, we have been talking about the Houthi rebels and the fact that the Houthi rebels and Hezbollah have been attacking the United States routinely. We've seen it in Syria. We've been seeing it. Hezbollah has been firing off missiles at the United States, our military in the Mediterranean. They've been attacking our ships in the Red Sea. We've been seeing them attack commercial ships. Every single one of America's allies, they've been attacking that over and over and over again. By the way, this article is Joe Biden sent a private message to Tehran, to the Ayatollah, said that we are prepared, that we are ready for war. No, we're not. No, we're not. I'm sorry. We are not. Not even close. And everyone in the world knows it. The Army, the Navy, and the Air Force all missed their recruitment numbers. Lloyd Austin is taking off a week at a time without anyone in the White House even knowing that he's not on the job. No one is doing the job of the defense secretary, and no one knew he wasn't doing his job at a time that we have Americans being held hostage by Hamas, at a time when our ships, our vessels, our Navy is being attacked by terrorists. And the Houthis are terrorists. The news media always likes to leave out that one little thing. The Houthi rebels, they are Houthi terrorists. They are the terrorists of Yemen. They've always been terrorists. They've always been anti-American. That's why Obama was drone bombing them to hell back when he was in office. They have always hated America. They have always tried to commit acts of terror against America. They are terrorists. They're not rebels. They're terrorists. There's a big difference. These are the guys who run around with suicide vests blowing up little children. They're terrorists. And these terrorists who have rockets given to them by Iran, just like Hezbollah, just like Hamas, they answer to Iran. Iran is the core problem in this situation, which the Biden administration is not addressing. The root of the problem is Iran. Why? Because Iran wants power. They want people to convert. They hate everyone who doesn't believe and do what they say. And they are more than happy to support terrorism around the world. And we know Iran is the single greatest sponsor of terror in the world. And their brand of terrorism that they support around the world is Hezbollah and the Houthis and Hamas. And so Joe Biden says, oh, we're prepared. We're all ready. Don't worry. You can't surprise us. But it's a complete failure. And everyone knows that what's happening right now is a failure. You see, if we think about this for more than the minute or 30 seconds that the mainstream news media will allow, or that they want us to pay attention to, we would suddenly realize that the entire Houthi experience, the entire problem with the Red Sea, isn't a new thing. Again, this has been going on for 2 months. This has been going on since November. This isn't new. The news media just decided that now is an okay time to talk about it because they didn't want to continue to talk about the women hostages being sexually abused. Again, something we knew about on October 7th. We knew about that October 8th, October 9th, October 10th. We knew that women, Americans and women, were being sexually abused by Hamas. The news media didn't want to talk about that until December. They let 2 months go before they mentioned it. Why? Because people might not support Hamas. People might want Joe Biden to do something about it. And that would change the way you vote in 2024. So the news media didn't talk about it until they had to absolutely talk about it when the hostages were released and forced them to admit something that everyone in the news media knew about in October. And so they were forced to bring it up. And if you notice, after the second week of December, they stopped talking about it. You don't hear the National Organization of Women. You don't hear any pro-women feminist organization, any of the colleges across America, at Harvard, at Cornell University, Stanford, Binghamton University. You don't hear any of them protesting or talking about the women that Hamas is sexually torturing as we speak. You don't hear a single one calling out about that. They dropped the story. It's no longer it's no longer newsworthy. Why? The women are still being tortured. In fact, the men are being tortured too. It's still happening as we speak. They're still hostages. But it's not a story anymore. Why? Because we've moved on to something else. We need to distract from that. We don't want to talk about that because you might not vote Democrat in 2024. And that's really sad. That's really sad. You might not support Hamas, which would mean supporting Iran. It means supporting genocide, like Catherine Gay, the former head of Harvard, supporting genocide. You might not support that genocide if you understood what it is. No. But Catherine Gay, she's okay. She supports genocide, and that's okay. It's the plagiarism they were upset about. I mean, really, folks, let's think about that. The left is more upset with Catherine Gay, the president of Harvard, because she plagiarizes than the fact that she supports genocide of a people. That should terrify you. No wonder they support Hamas. They're okay with genocide because the tenets of the principles of being a progressive says that you always have to support the little guy, the small one, whoever it is. But if it's the little guy who started the fight, it doesn't matter. They're always justified no matter what they do. The criminal is always absolved of the crime or the consequences of that crime because they're the criminal. It's okay because they want to destroy the foundations of freedom. Think about it. The same leftists out of Harvard, the same leftists that are in our news media and many of the corporate boardrooms that are in our politics, like Rashida Tlaib, these are the same people. They support releasing criminals, either absolving their crimes, like everyone who burned down Minneapolis, the 6,000 people who were arrested in New York State in 2020 and 2021 for rioting, walking into restaurants, destroying the restaurants, and threatening people's lives as they did in Rochester, New York. They all had their crimes waived away. No one was charged. That's the leftists. They believe in bail reform. You commit a crime, you rob a bank, you go in, and then an hour later you walk out. Cashless bail. You get to be back on the street, going back to every one of your victims and threaten them, coerce them to not enforce charges against you so that you can commit even more crimes. 15% of the people that they have going through this revolving door have committed even more crimes as soon as the same day, as soon as the same hour that they're released. This is what the left believes in. Because it's not their fault. It's the system that's the problem. It's someone who has a different color of skin. It's someone with a different gender. It's always someone else's fault. It's never the fault of the policies of the left. It's never the fault of the person who made the decision. Now they are trying to convince you that Hamas are the good guys, that Hamas are the victims. Oh my God, Hamas started a war. And now they are losing that war because they were always going to lose the war. But we have to feel bad because they're losing the war. We have to give humanitarian aid to Hamas, a terrorist organization with a purpose of genocide. That's what they exist for, genocide. And we're supposed to give them humanitarian aid so they can keep on committing genocide. We have to try and force Israel into a two-state existence to create a country of Palestine that doesn't exist, never existed. And we have to create a nation of Palestine so that they can commit genocide against Israel. Does that make sense to anyone? Because this is what the left is teaching. This is what the indoctrination from the left is. Whether it's on mainstream media or in our colleges, that's what they're pushing. That makes no sense. That makes no sense whatsoever. And they are pushing this. And now, as we can see with the Houthi rebels, and this is in this article is coming from the New York Times. All the bluster from Joe Biden that he finally, after 2 months of Americans being attacked, after 2 months of our allies' commercial vessels and our military vessels being attacked, after 2 months of provocation, he finally responds and he's like, we're prepared for war. And we didn't do more than 20% damage. According to the New York Times, we didn't do anything. Joe Biden succeeded at nothing. 80% of the Houthi rebels, of the Houthi terrorists, are capable of continuing to fight, to continue to attack our ships and our planes and our people. They didn't get the job done. In fact, far, far from it. They failed. This is from the New York Times. You don't have to believe me. You can say, Mike, you're a conservative, you're a Republican. Okay, my feelings have nothing to do with this. My political preference has nothing to do with the fact, empirical fact, internationally verified fact, as stated by the left-leaning New York Times. Joe Biden failed. He has not stopped the Houthi rebels. He has not even significantly impeded their ability to continue to attack the United States, the United Kingdom, and all of our allies. They have not stopped them. They have not made the statement that they want to make, and it took them 2 months to do this half-assed attempt anyway. 2 months. In fact, they were so bad at it that we had to do a second set of strikes because the first set didn't work. We were going back to strike radar facilities that we were supposed to destroy the first time, and they failed. And so we had to go back and do it again. And we don't even know if the second time if we got it right. This is the status of the United States right now. This is the leadership that is being heralded by the left that the rest of the world is laughing at. This is not a giant that you should be fearful of when they swing at their enemies and mostly miss. When they fail to stop the threat. When they don't care if that threat is being put against its own people, the ones they're supposed to be defending. Do you see why I'm upset, folks? This is important. The news media in a minute and a half do not want to have this conversation with you. They do not want you to look at the news and to think, because that's all it takes. Here are the facts. Think about it. What does this mean? Where does this lead? Joe Biden sending a letter to Iran. Why? Because Hezbollah and the Houthis and Hamas are not independent. They answer to Iran. So Joe Biden's sending a message to Iran, and Iran is sending a message right back. They don't care. In fact, Iran is saying, the Houthis they're the victims here. How dare the United States, literally, listen to the message. How dare the United States defend itself from the Houthi rebels, the Houthi terrorists that started attacking the United States? Because the United States wanted to get the hostages back. Because the United States wants to get the hostages that Hamas took that Hamas unilaterally and by their own devices decided they were going to invade Israel. They killed civilians. They tortured and captured and sexually abused civilians, including Americans and the United Kingdom, a bunch of Britons, talking about people from Nepal and from Thailand. They just grabbed a bunch of hundreds, 250 individuals, and just took them. Those are the ones they took. And they killed over 1,000, almost 1,500 other individuals, again, from all these different countries. That was Hamas. They did that on their own because they weren't afraid of retribution from the United States. They weren't afraid of Europe or the United Kingdom retribution. In fact, after they did that, they turned around to Europe, to the United Kingdom, to Joe Biden and said, give us humanitarian aid because Israel is beating us up because we started a fight with them. This is how if you want to water down the politics, this is the baseline you get. Hamas started a war. That war went the way everyone expects it to. They're losing. And because they're losing, they're turning to the countries where they have hostages being used as human shields and saying, we're the victims, give us humanitarian aid. Those guys are such big, mean bullies. How dare they fight back? And that is the exact same logic that Iran and the Houthi terrorists are using against America right now in the Red Sea. How dare you attack the Yemen terrorists in Yemen? How dare you attack them for trying to blow up and capture U.S. ships for 2 months? I know nobody who's listening to this has heard this said in this way on CNN, on MSNBC, in the New York Times. The left-leaning news media will never say it as honest and as direct and as simply as that, because that's what it is. It is that simple. And that is why Iran is laughing in our face right now. That is part of the reason why China is saying they're going to take Taiwan by force. That's part of the reason why Russia is saying we're going to take the Ukraine and we might also take part of Western Europe. That they're going to barnstorm in Eastern Europe, and that they're going to go and take maybe Poland, maybe Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia, Moldova, that they might go into Finland, they may go into Sweden. They're threatening everyone. Because why not? It's not like Joe Biden's going to do anything. It's not like the strongest nation in the world is actually standing up and saying, you're going to be in trouble if you do that. You better back off. You better give us our people alive and not tortured, not sexually abused. They better be whole. Give us our people back or else. Think about that. We're not doing that anymore. We used to do things like that. We're not anymore. Remember when the United States bombed Libya? Remember when we had to do that? And we nearly blew up Gaddafi's house back while he was still in charge. And their answer was, oops, we're sorry. Our pilots were tired and they accidentally hit your house because they didn't have enough sleep because you didn't give us enough airspace. You didn't give us rights to enter your airspace. So they were tired from having to travel the long way around to attack the bad guys. Now think about that for a second. That's what we used to do. We used to make a statement around the world. We used to react quickly and with massive force, saying that if you attack Americans anywhere in the world, the United States will retaliate. And we will retaliate in a way that will devastate you, that we will, even by accident, we will overwhelm your nation. You cannot fight back. So don't even try. Don't do this. You do not take American hostages. You do not attack American ships, naval vessels. You do not do this because you should fear the giant that will come and smack you down. That is what we used to be like. And in the modern day, the modern American that has been instructed for a generation by Harvard and Columbia and Stanford and Cornell University, the modern American youth who have been instructed that they obey, that they have to be progressive, that they have to check all the boxes, and of course, the smaller the group, the bigger the box that must be checked for them. They don't do anything. 2 months. 2 months that the Houthi rebels have been attacking the United States. That in that same time, Hezbollah has been attacking the United States. And of course, Hamas has continued to hold our hostages. Where's the response from Joe Biden? This is it? Literally, this is it? Does anyone think that this is going to stop it? Does anyone think that? Okay, so let me ask a question. And give me a second to type this out. So it's a little bit of a conspiracy theory, let's call it that, because that's what the left will call it, that I'm going to ask. I'm asking, it's a question that the left, I am sure, will consider it a conspiracy theory for me to dare say this. Okay? And I've put the question up. It is on in Rumble. It is on in YouTube as we speak and all the other social media that the giants will allow. It's a real simple question. Do you think this is on purpose? Do you think that the Biden administration's half-hearted actions are not just a reason, not just because of their inept administration? And by the way, there is no question, it's inept. If the Secretary of Defense is in a hospital for a week and no one knows, that's inept. That is a corrupt government. That's a fact. I mean, and he's doing that as tensions in the Middle East and Southeast Asia and a war actively in Europe are all happening. And the defense secretary is gone for a week and you didn't notice? You're inept. That's corruption. That is failure. Epic levels of failure. There is no other way to describe that. So separate of that insane level of ineptitude, let's consider, is this a political strategy? The United States does not change presidents during a military conflict. It's one of the things that were one of the arguments used against Ronald Reagan back in the 80s. So his second term, the United States was going into Grenada. Do you remember that? And he was using that as the backdrop of his presidency. And people were saying, well, we don't switch presidents in the middle of conflicts. And so the United States was dealing with a lot of Central and South American conflicts. And so the argument was, well, the United States doesn't change leaders midstream. And we've heard that same statement in every single war and military conflict that the United States has ever had. We do not want to change presidents while we are fighting an enemy. And that makes sense. In one perspective, we can understand why the United States and any government, any country would say that. You don't change in the middle of a war. Okay, not the leader, not the mentality, that mindset, that direction of that leader. You tend not to do that. I know that the United Kingdom will say, no, you do, because they switched from Neville Chamberlain to Winston Churchill. And good thing they did. But they weren't actually in the war with Neville Chamberlain. They got into the war, and the war actually started with Winston Churchill. Chamberlain just enabled the ability of Germany to start the war. Slight sidebar there. But here in the United States, we really don't do that. So is Joe Biden using these conflicts, the fact that there are Americans held by Hamas and he has to get them back, is that part of his 2024 strategy? It's been done before. We saw that in 1980. And again, Ronald Reagan, he made a deal to get the American hostages back. And part of that is the reason why Carter couldn't make a deal to get those hostages back. It was part of the election strategy. We got our citizens back, but they were held a little bit longer in part because of the deal that Ronald Reagan and the Republicans had made at that time. Whether you love that or hate that doesn't matter. That's fact. That's what happened. That was part of the deal. And it affected the politics. So are we seeing the same thing now? To be able to counteract Donald Trump, Joe Biden and his team are slow walking the return of American hostages from Hamas. That they are slow walking responses to Hezbollah and to the Houthi rebels, effectively, that we are slow walking and taking a snail's pace in reaction to Iran and its attack against the United States, who they consider the great devil. Think about that. The United States is the great devil, according to Iran. Iran doesn't care about the Houthi rebels, Hezbollah, or Hamas. They care about killing America. And you don't have to believe me for that. Listen to the Ayatollah himself. Listen to their Prime Minister Raisi themselves. They will tell you. Just ask them, and they will be happy to go on international news and tell you, as they have in the past, that they will kill America. That is their goal. They will kill Israel. They will kill America. They have no problem saying that to anyone in the world, and they've been saying it for 45 years. Now, but is Biden using that to his advantage? Is he allowing the Middle East to escalate to the same level as what we see with Europe, except instead of the proxy war that we see going on in Europe with Ukraine versus Russia, and the United States is proxy fighting with Ukraine, which was good enough for the 2022 midterm elections. You had to support Biden, you had to support Democrats because they were supporting the Ukraine, no questions asked. Give $200 billion to the Ukraine. It doesn't matter. Just give them everything. You have to. You can't question it. And that got them through the 22 midterm election, and Democrats did as well as they did because of that. Is that the same mentality they're using in 2024? That, oh, we got to stay with Joe Biden. He knows how to fight Iran. He knows how to fight the Houthis and Hezbollah and Hamas. And Donald Trump wouldn't know how to do that. That he wouldn't be as good at it. That they don't fear him. This is what the left will tell you. That, no, well, Iran isn't afraid of Donald Trump. Hell yes, they are. The Houthi rebels, the Hezbollah and Hamas, they're not afraid of Donald Trump. Hell yes, they are. Because Donald Trump would blow them to hell. They know that. He said so. They believed him. They calmed down quick when he was in for 4 years. And they know he would do it again. But what do you think? No, let me go to the comments. So, Graham says, Michael, what do you think of some representatives in Congress saying that Joe Biden needed congressional approval before he could attack the Houthi rebels? They're wrong. I'll expand on that in 1 second. Okay. So, Graham, I know what the argument is, and this is coming from, again, Democrats. This is coming from the progressives who want to support Hamas. They want to support genocide. They want to support Iran. They want to support anything except America. That's the Democratic Socialists of America. That's the Antifa. That is the progressive left. They hate America by definition. And you're hearing from Rashida Tlaib in particular, who hates America and is in Congress, which makes no sense. They're saying, oh, well, the United States could not attack the Houthi rebels. Yes, we can. For a couple of reasons. First of all, the Houthi terrorists are not a nation. So the United States, in attacking them, is not attacking a nation. So it's not like it's an act of war. We don't have to declare war to attack terrorists. That's been established. That is law. That is fact. You don't need to declare war to attack Antifa or ISIS or Al Qaeda. You don't. So that's not a reason why you would need Congress. Second, the War Powers Act, which has been modified since the 1970s, and as it currently states, the president has 60 days. The United States president can go into to use military force pretty much anywhere in the world and use that force for 60 days before he has to report back to Congress and get authorization to continue to use that force. That's the War Powers Act. President Obama used this constantly as a justification for using drones to bomb American citizens and other terrorists around the world. He would go against American citizens who were supporting terrorism as well as terrorists, and he would bomb the hell out of them with drones. Not American troops, drones. And the news media didn't cover it because no American troops were involved. Even though it was against American citizens, and the Obama administration authorized the use of drone bombs against American citizens without those American citizens ever being convicted of a crime, which is insane. Insane that the constitutional lawyer said, yeah, we don't need to give them constitutional rights. They're American citizens, overseas or at home, doesn't matter. They have a right. You can't bomb them without saying that they have committed a crime. But that's another argument for a different day. The fact is, the War Powers Act allows any president to use force for 60 days before they have to get approval to continue to use that force from Congress. So, does Joe Biden have the right to do this? Yes. He's fighting terrorists, not a nation, and he has the ability to authorize, as Commander-in-Chief, the use of force to protect American troops, as well as to enforce the best interests of the United States in the world. Now, the left doesn't like that because it's a reminder that President Trump or any other president could do that against their chosen few, their golden children. At the moment, that golden child happens to be Hamas. They're now trying to create the Houthi terrorists and raise them up as if they too are a group of innocents. Oh my God, look at this. We're being bullies. We're just beating up on these Houthi. We're beating up on Yemen. No, we're not. We're not beating up on Yemen. We didn't attack Yemen, the country. The Houthi rebels are terrorists in Yemen. They have been fighting a war against the government of Yemen. They have been backed by Iran for more than a decade in this fight. I know most Americans don't pay attention to that. Most Americans don't even know where Yemen is. So let's take this all with a pound of salt. Most Americans don't understand. When you say Houthis, there is no country called Houthi. Doesn't exist. Just like there's no country called Hamas or Palestine, nor Hezbollah. These are organizations. These are terrorist organizations that are in countries like Jordan, like Egypt, like in Gaza, and like in Yemen. So war, literally the definitions of war powers do not apply in the broadest sense. But more specifically, the president does have the authorization. They just, Rashida Tlaib is just upset. Cori Bush are just upset that their heroes, their favored children, terrorists, are being picked on. That terrorists who started a fight with America are losing the fight against America. They want these terrorists to win. I mean, that's the only conclusion I can come to. Cori Bush, Rashida Tlaib, many of these people, they want, Ilhan Omar, they want America to lose. They want Joe Biden to back down like he did when the Taliban were fighting in Afghanistan. They want Joe Biden to run away. In fact, they're counting on it. In fact, that's what Iran is counting on. Joe Biden, all of this started because Joe Biden in 2021 ran away from the Taliban. That's what started all of this. That was the domino. That's the inciting, if you're writing a book or doing a movie, this is the inciting incident. That in 2021, July of 2021, I believe it was July 15th of 2021, Joe Biden backed away. He ran away from the Taliban. And he never stopped running. He ran so fast, he left bases, he left weapons, he left ammunition, and he left the American people. That's how fast Joe Biden was running. He ran as fast as he possibly could, and that told everyone in the world that if you stand up against Joe Biden and just wait, he will run away because of the politics, especially if you focus the politics against him. Like have the rest of your pro-Hamas supporters go and complain and attack the White House. If you have your pro-Hamas supporters attack the DNC, if you have your pro-Hamas supporters in Congress, like Rashida Tlaib and Cori Bush and Ilhan Omar, and have them say America is being a bully and a bad guy on national TV. If you put up the political pressure, Joe Biden runs every single time. And they know it. And they're going to use it. It's an election year. Joe Biden is already losing. He's already being demonized by the left, who don't want him in the first place. So the more political pressure you put on him, the more likely he's going to bend so that he can get that vote. Because that's all he cares about. That is the only thing the Biden administration has cared about. Get through the next election, win as many seats, and maintain as much power as possible. Does that answer your question, Graham? I know it's a little involved, but let's be honest. It has to be involved because this is a complex issue. We're talking about things that have been happening for several months, that have been happening since October, that the mainstream media largely tried to ignore. And they're trying to make it seem like nothing happened before. This is brand new. No, the Houthi rebels suddenly attacked America. Well, why is America suddenly attacking the Houthi rebels? Where did that come from? There's no reason for that. That's out the blue. No, it's been happening for months. 3 months we've been seeing this happening. But everything always goes back. If you track it back, the inciting incident is Joe Biden running away from the Taliban. That told the rest of the world there is a line, there is a limit that Joe Biden will go to. And that limit is defined by his politics and his need to get through the next election. So if you just take that into account, the next election, and if you just put the political pressure on him about the election, Joe Biden will fold like a house of cards. every single time. And this is why suddenly the Houthis, who are now saying, we're going to retaliate against America. How dare you? Literally, think about what the Houthi rebels have said. The terrorists. Think about what they've said. How dare America strike them in their land, Yemen? How dare America take out the terrorists? And because America dared to attempt to take out the terrorists, we only had a 20% success rate. Because we attempted to do it, they guarantee they're going to retaliate. Iran has guaranteed and has come out this weekend and promised that they are going to attack America because we fought back against the Houthi terrorists. Did you hear this? This is only the left. This is the left-leaning logic. Wait a minute. The bad guys are claiming victimhood because they're just small bad guys. And the good guy defending themselves, well, they're really the bad guy because they're bigger than the guy who started the fight. Does that make sense to anyone? Because it does check all the right boxes according to DEI, according to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and intersectionality. It checks all the right boxes. And that's why the left is perfectly happy to support genocidal terrorists. And the left hates to point this out. They hate to have to admit this. They will call you an ist and a phobe, and they will try to shut you down, and they will try to cancel this channel for the fact that we are pointing out they aren't thinking. They are just checking boxes. And the boxes say they have to support Hamas, they have to support the Houthis, and they cannot let the American people know about the horrific terror that the Houthi rebels, that the Houthi terrorists, that the Hamas terrorists have enacted around the world. And do not forget, Hamas has been the agents of Hamas have gone into Europe, and they were trying to kill Jews in Sweden. They were captured in Germany. They were captured in Denmark, trying to plan international terrorist attacks. God forbid what's happening in the United States with our open border right now. Iran has promised to attack Americans, not just overseas, but at home. Remember, we have an open border. We have 8 million people who have entered the United States under Joe Biden. What is it? 3.2 million people tried to enter the United States in 2023 alone. That 546 terrorists attempted to enter the United States in 2023 alone, and 172 of the known and or suspected terrorists actually succeeded in entering America in 2023 alone. That's just 1 year. How many of them might have been Iranian members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, or the Houthis, or Hamas, or Hezbollah? I tell you what, it only needs to be one. It only needs to be one. And you get the Orlando nightclub. You get San Bernardino. You get Fort Hood. You get Boulder, Colorado shooting. It only takes one religious fanatic. Think about 9/11. How many people did it take for that? Think about the Wakusha, the guy in the car who ran over a parade full of people because of black supremacy. Think about the New York subway shooter. Oh yeah, everyone's forgetting about all these names. I bet you forgot about these. I didn't. The New York subway shooter, who was a black supremacist. Think about the examples we have in front of us. That's all just one. Just one. There were 172 known or suspected terrorists that we caught. How many did we not catch? How many did we not catch? Out of the 3.2 million going to America, how about the 8,000 in a caravan in Mexico right now looking to enter America through the open borders, the welded open gates in Lukeville, Arizona, as we speak? How many of those thousands might be Houthi or Hezbollah or Hamas or Iranian terrorists? The answer is, if there's even one, we have a problem. How many of the 120,000 illegal aliens that came into the United States, 120,000 that entered into New York City by itself, just New York City alone, 8,000 in Chicago, similar numbers in Boston. Just if there's even one in 100,000 in New York City, how much damage can they do? Then shouldn't we be concerned? Should we not be concerned? So let me go back to the comments, because Graham says, right, I don't disagree with your take, but I think congressional Democrats are trying to set a precedent in which they can vehemently oppose President Trump on international conflicts after 2025, January 2025. No, I don't think that's it. I truly don't think that this is about Donald Trump. I understand your reasoning, and your reasoning does make sense, that they're trying to set up a precedent to change the War Powers Act, to change the definition of terrorists and our responses to those terrorists. I understand why you would say, well, that's about 2025, because Democrats are sure that they're going to lose with Joe Biden. But I don't think that's it. I think this is a progressive ideology that they are screaming at the top of their lungs, because they have check boxes they must adhere to. No matter how illogical it is, no matter how dumb the strategy, no matter how dangerous the consequences are, they have to go with those check boxes. And they have to, if they are to remain consistent, to have their supporters remain supporting them, they have to go wherever those check boxes lead them. That's what the progressive movement is all about at the end of the day. They can justify, as long as they can point to a checkbox, they can justify anything. And at the end of the day, the Democratic Socialists of America, the BLM, Antifa, the far left want to change the Constitution. They want to change the amendments. In fact, they want to destroy them and put in place entirely different rules. They want the UN human rights in place of the amendments. They don't want the Constitution. They don't want the amendments. They don't want you to have a Second Amendment right or a free speech right. They want to give you human rights. And here's the key about that. If the government can give you something, that same government can take it away from you. You don't actually have it. If they want to, the progressives want to give you human rights, that means they can take them away. They want to give you a right to health care, which means they can take it away. Or they can modify how much they give you. Oh, we gave you the right, but you know what? We're going to narrow that right. We're going to redefine it because it's not what you think it is. They put the government in charge and the human being non-existent. They're not important. So that's a big difference. And we have to understand that when we understand why are they doing this. This isn't about Trump, quite honestly. At the end of the day, it's not about Trump. It's about changing America. It's about destroying the cornerstone of what is America. It is much bigger than Trump. It is much bigger than Biden. Those just happen to be the current cars they're in that they're traveling on. But it's much bigger than any of them. Does that make sense? People may not agree with that. And that's fine. You can think I'm wrong. You cannot like it. But I think that's accurate. And there's a big difference. And I am absolutely sure, by the way, please, whether you agree with me or not, please like, share, and subscribe. We're talking about things. YouTube is actively trying to delete channels that would dare have this conversation with you. Whether you agree or disagree, the fact that this is even a question, that we are even mentioning this, is enough for some in the intelligentsia, in some of the internet overlords, to try to eliminate the conversation at all. Now, I understand if we happen to be in Angola, no, I can't say that. If I happen to be in Canada, nope, don't have a freedom of speech, can't say that. But I live in America. We are Americans, and by extension, when I'm speaking to the world, I am also passing on that freedom of speech to the rest of the world. And they do not want that. They do not want people to think about this or to have this conversation. Even if they were to say, Mike, I absolutely disagree. I think Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez got it right. Even if you think Rashida Tlaib is correct, even if you believe in the genocidal policies that are supported by Harvard and Catherine Gay, even if you support that, they don't want you to have this conversation. Oh, no. They want this canceled. They want this eliminated. They want this suppressed. And by the way, you can say, but Mike, they haven't deleted your channel yet. No, because then it becomes obvious what they're doing. Because I haven't broken any guideline. Never break any guideline. I'm well within the guidelines. No, they want to suppress it. Because if they try to delete it outright, then they're going to say, oh, well, here's proof of their bias. No, what they do instead is they make it impossible to see this channel. We've been doing this for well over a decade. And I know, and I wish I could show it to everyone. I wish I could show everyone. Like if you go to Alternative or some of the interviews we've done, you look at the shorts, even on YouTube, like Alternative, every single short of a conversation I had with them about Iran and Hamas and the war, 4, 5, 10,000 people are watching those shorts, 1-minute clips of a 2-hour conversation. I put out the same clip, 5 people get to see it. I can have a 1-minute clip that I put onto TikTok, again, the Chinese Communist Party's platform, and they will show it to 1,200 people before they delete it, but they will show it to 1,200 people first. Instagram, that is not known for its politics, will have 20 and 50,000 people see what we are talking about. YouTube shows it to 5. They're suppressing it. It's not that I do not believe it's that I don't make sense or that everyone disagrees with me. They don't. Because when you put it in any other format, thousands upon thousands of people check it out and hundreds upon hundreds agree. So please help us beat that algorithm to reach those thousands upon thousands of people. The algorithm only works if you don't like, share, and subscribe. Quite honestly, that's the only way that they can win. It's the only way they can suppress us. Even if you say, oh, well, Mike, I disagree. Fantastic. Show it to all of your friends. Show it to every single progressive in Antifa that you know. And let them come and say how wrong I am. Let's hear them give their counter argument to the evidence that I have shown and the argument I have made. Because that's how ideas are supposed to go in America. We're supposed to have that passionate debate and let the best idea win. That's what made America great. Because America is great. Because it's the only nation in the world where the battle of ideas is allowed, or at least used to be allowed. Graham goes on to say, yeah, what I said makes sense. Well, I'm glad. I've been trying. And as I have been trying to make that clear, well, we've seen that YouTube seems to be trying to dump everyone from the channel. I don't know if people can still see this on YouTube. By the way, if for some reason YouTube just shuts it off, go on over to Rumble. See the channel on Rumble. See what we're saying there. Because I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to let them silence me. And even though, because they like to play with the numbers, and they'll tell me that no one, I have literally seen YouTube go as far as to tell me that there is absolutely no one able to see the channel on any platform. No people are seeing it. 0 people. Meanwhile, the audience will be typing in, just like right now. Yes, I'm about to get to the domestic news. Yes, Graham. We're going to be talking about Iowa. We're going to be talking about Vivek and the rest of them in just a moment. I just want to make sure. So, here we go. I just want to make sure that I've covered this well. I just want to make sure that I'm still on. Hey, Graham, you know what? You and Dal and Graham are here talking, and I'm getting a message in my system that says 0 people are watching on YouTube. Meanwhile, I have messages coming in from Graham and Dal. That tells you it's crazy. No, it's not even that you're typing. It's just that YouTube is saying that you don't exist because they want me to be discouraged. They want me to not speak anymore. It's the way they play their game, and I know it. I did want to just, again, remind everyone, and you'll see the links to the description of everything we're talking about. You can go into the description, and you'll see links for all of this. And again, when I say that the left were trying to break down the gates and try and get into the White House, that they were being insurrectionist, it's not me saying this. It's actually public news. It's internationally credible news. So I just want people to understand. We don't need to make up anything. I don't have to tell you my feelings. I have the facts. The facts are available for you. And we do base everything we talk about in this channel on those facts. So I just want you to know that. Let me see here. So I left off. Emergencies rekindling. Nope. Bear with me. And also, again, just to verify and let you know, I have more articles and more sources that I'm not showing at this moment that I have. But this is also coming from I-24. Hamas cells plotting attacks in Europe and elsewhere. So again, I'm not making this up. These are the facts as they exist. And the evidence does exist internationally. CNN isn't telling you about it. MSNBC and the New York Times don't want to talk about it. That's because they have a vested interest, because they want you to vote a certain way. It's not that the news doesn't exist. It's not that it isn't verified by the rest of the world. It's that it's not politically expedient for their ideology. And this is why they lie to you. This is why they hide information. It's why they punish people. But let me continue. So I wanted to move on to, so we left off there. Before we get to Iowa, let's talk about what's happening directly in the United States. And because these things are affecting everyone in the United States, they're also affecting the rest of the world. So I got this message earlier today, as you can see on the screen right now, from the New York State Republicans, young Republicans. And they put out this message, and I was very, very shocked when I saw this. I'm like, this can't be real. They didn't really do this. Because, again, what are we seeing the left do? Well, they're losing. They're losing in the ideas. They're losing in the realm of elections. They're losing support. Apathy is running absolutely rampant. And so because they're losing, They're changing the game. They're changing the rules. And we see this. This is a fact. This happened in December, and I missed it at first. So I got to apologize for that. I missed it at first. But in New York State, they've changed the elections. They've actually changed when people are going to vote. Now, their answer is, well, this will get more people to vote. We're going to change the election so everyone's voting for all the local and state elections at the same time that you vote for the president and for the midterms. But here's the thing. It's not going to be a solution. All you're doing is adding more confusion. All you're doing is guaranteeing that people just vote straight down the line. Because now you have to follow all the state elections. You have to follow the presidential election, the congressional, the county executives. You have to count the town supervisors. You're supposed to know about all of these races that normally, because this is something that's affecting you, your region, your town supervisor, your county executive, these are regional races. You need time to figure out these people who are dealing with your personal issues, as opposed to taking the time to find out, well, how is Joe Biden or Donald Trump or Vivek Ramaswamy or Nikki Haley or RFK, how are they going to affect America? That's a conversation that takes a lot of time, that takes a lot of research. That's why it has its own cycle of re-election. Same thing when it comes to Congress. There's a reason why we do the midterms when we do and why it's so important. Because it gives people time to find out the facts, to understand what's going on. But Democrats haven't been doing well with that, especially in New York. They've lost a few too many races. Too many of their candidates aren't high tier enough. They don't make the bar, even when the bar is lowered and lowered and lowered to fit DEI checkboxes. It's too obvious to see when we are electing people simply because of the color of their skin, their gender, or their sexual preference. It's too blatantly obvious. It's like watching the Marvels or watching Echo. It's a bunch of checkboxes. It has nothing to do with entertainment. It's not supposed to entertain you. It's supposed to check off the checkboxes. It's propaganda. Well, we have people who are being put into elected office not because they actually care or that they're doing their job. They checked off the right boxes. That's it. And so they changed the time that you're going to have the elections, adding confusion and trying to guarantee themselves even more. Because what happens in New York State, California, Illinois, Maine, Massachusetts, what do you see? People will vote straight down the line, party line. They don't even know who's running. They don't know who's in the vote. They don't know who's in whatever election. They just vote straight down the line. And they just check off, well, my party is Democrat, so they just vote straight down the line. Or working families, straight down the line, progressive. They don't actually think, who are you actually voting for? What are you actually voting for? No, it's too much. Too many choices. No, just vote straight down the line. And that's all that they do. And that's all that they want you to do. No, Colin, we're not going out yet. That's my puppy. My dog wants me to go out right now. Not going out yet. So where did I leave off? Sorry, threw me off. Threw me off. So they changed that. And I just want people to be aware of that because I think it's rather important that New York State is trying to take advantage of you, counting on the fact that it's just too much. They want to overwhelm you. They want you to feel like you're overwhelmed, that you can't keep up with this. You can. It means that you may not watch as many episodes of The Housewives of wherever the hell. You may not be able to watch that Echo series, that Disney Plus program that's going to tell you to check all the boxes. You may not be able to watch that, and you want to watch that entertainment. You want that dumb, empty, vacuous noise in the background going on constantly. You want that, and you don't want to spend the time paying attention to politicians, and they know that. So they're front loading it, so they're going to get more of an advantage. This is how they take advantage of you. This is a form of voter nullification, overwhelming you into submission, throwing so much at you that you just break down and do whatever it is that they want because you can't keep up. It's voter nullification. It really is. Let me see. Bear with me. But moving on from that, because I did want to cover that. Do you remember this week? There's so much that happened this week, and I think most people forgot that in this week, before there were the Houthis, or at least before the news media decided to tell you that the Houthis have been consistently attacking America, well, Hunter Biden decided to show up for his contempt meeting. Remember that? Hunter Biden decided that, he was going to mock the American people. He was going to mock that he was going to mock not just the American people, but our Congress. And he did. Because he wouldn't show up. When Hunter Biden was under subpoena, when he was to be under oath and appear before the American people to answer questions about influence peddling amongst his family members, in particular Joe Biden, going back to 2015, that we know Joe Biden was getting checks that were originating from the Chinese Communist government and were getting passed through various companies to end up in Joe Biden's bank account. We know that happened. And we know that Joe Biden lied to the American people and said it didn't happen. Yes, it did. We know it happened. And so what does that mean? We need an answer. We need to know answers from the source, which would be Hunter Biden, who has lied to the American people about these same issues, but he wasn't under oath. So he refused. He denied the American people and said he would not go in, which is contempt. And so when the House of Representatives, they had their meeting, their House congressional meeting on contempt for Hunter Biden showed up. Then he decided to show up under oath. And you know what? Nancy Mace had something very interesting to say about that. And let's see what she said here.
Second question, you are the epitome of white privilege, coming into the Oversight Committee, spitting in our face, ignoring a congressional subpoena to be deposed. What are you afraid of? You have no balls to come up here and...
Mr. Chairman, point of inquiry.
Mr. Chairman,
Now, at that moment, after Nancy Mace said that Hunter Biden had no balls, which he doesn't, and when Nancy Mace said, or let me rephrase that, as best as I can tell, because I've never actually seen Hunter Biden, don't want to be near him like that way, and besides, he prefers sex workers that are underage because that's who he took photos with. So we have to make that conclusion. But Hunter Biden is a coward. He would not go under oath. And he showed up to try and say he was above the law, that he could appear before Congress when he isn't under subpoena and still not answer questions, and expect that he was not going to have any consequence because his dad, it happens to be sitting in the White House, because his party, the Democratic Party, has got his back. They're paying his bills. It was insulting. And again, this goes to what the rest of the world is seeing. The rest of the world is watching this. And I know Democrats were like, oh, well, someone else in the past didn't support a subpoena, and you wanted to hold them in contempt too. The question isn't what did anyone else do in the past. Did Hunter Biden commit contempt? The answer to that is yes. Yes, he did. And should he be punished for that? Yes, he should. He's guilty, and he should be held accountable. Period. Full stop. Doesn't matter who he is. He's guilty, and he should be held accountable. Whatever happened in the past, if someone was guilty, you should have held them accountable too. If they weren't guilty, don't bring it up. But that's the past. That has nothing to do with Hunter Biden. Did Hunter Biden commit contempt? The answer to that can only be yes. But Democrats have said, well, other people weren't held in contempt. I don't care. And they say, well, he wants to talk in the future. I don't care. Because neither of those two answers deals with the actual question facing America. Was Hunter Biden guilty of contempt? Period. Full stop. Did he do it? The answer to that is yes, he did. That is a fact. It is empirical. There are no feelings about it. It has nothing to do with time travel, either to the past or to the future. He did it. Period. Full stop. He is guilty and therefore must be held accountable. But Democrats don't like that answer because it means that it makes Joe Biden look bad. It makes Democrats look bad, and they might not get the vote they need to win in 2024. So it has to be because Nancy Mace, well, she's MAGA. She wants to make America great. That must mean she's evil. She's some kind of Hitler Youth. Oh my God, how evil Nancy Mace must be for expecting Hunter Biden to be held to the law like any other American citizen. Come on. Come on, folks. It should be that simple. And I think it actually is that simple. I think most Americans look at this and they do see this as being very simple. That Hunter Biden is guilty, period. Doesn't matter what happened in the past, doesn't matter what happens in the future. And the only reason why you're talking about the past or the future is to distract us from what's happening right now, about what he did and what he is accountable for. And that you're trying to create a tiered system. Hunter Biden is above the law, and you and I are not. Now, of course, Hunter Biden was held in contempt. But the news media really didn't want to talk about that. They really don't want you to know what's happening in our own government on so many levels. They don't want you to know about the Houthi rebels who are terrorists and who've been attacking America for months without anyone questioning it. They don't want you to talk about Hamas and that they have been torturing women and hostages, Americans, for months. They don't want to talk about that. They don't want you to remember that there are Americans who are being held hostage, who are being used as human shields as we speak. They don't want you to know about that. They don't want you to think about that because you might vote differently. They don't want you to think about the different tiers of justice that they themselves are promoting in our country. They don't want you to think about that because if you did, they might lose power. And that is what they are concerned about. That is what they truly, truly are interested in. So, hang on one second, folks. Yeah. He'll go out shortly. What time is it? He'll be all right. It's all right. He's complaining. Hey, everyone. Sorry. Going to have to leave in a little bit. I'm going to stop and then come back because my puppy needs to go out. It's a little early for him, but we're going to go out, which means that I need to come back and cover Iowa. Didn't expect to have to break that up, but my puppy is, as I'm being told, he's anxious right now. And, he needs to go out. Con. So, and I care about my puppy. My puppy is a big deal. So what I will do is I will come back in, let's see, it's 4:30. So let's say 5:30. 5:30, I'll come back and I will finish up with Iowa and what's going on with Vivek Ramaswamy. Let's go into who's going to win Iowa and Nikki Haley and President Trump and what's happening with Joe Biden and RFK, how this is going to play out. Our predictions on what's going to happen in Iowa, what's going to happen in Maine, where again, President Trump remains off the ballot at this moment. We're going to try and cover all of that. So I'll come back specifically and singularly to talk about what's happening with Iowa and what's happening with Maine, what's going to happen with New Hampshire. We'll make our predictions. That will be exclusive to that. So I apologize, but again, I got to take care of my puppy. He's in distress. So